Hey, yo, what is up, gamers? Welcome back to Porcupine TV, and today I'm giving you the top 5 games of 2023. I know this is a little bit late. I had to delay the video because there was a lot of games from 2023 I hadn't yet played that I wanted to include in the review. And even still, with all this extra time I've had, I still haven't finished all the games that I really wanted to play. I haven't finished Lies of P, but I figure I cannot delay the video any longer. We gotta get this out, guys. I gotta give the people what they want. So we're giving you the top 5 games. Let's go. So before we get into the top 5 here, I do want to give an honorable mention to the game that I haven't yet completed, Lies of P. I'm probably about a third through it. And yeah, my thoughts are a little mixed on it. The basic kind of pitch of the game that you've probably heard, if you've heard of this, is that it's a Pinocchio Souls-like game that is kind of the spiritual successor to Bloodborne. And people have been really comparing this to Bloodborne, saying it's like basically as good as Bloodborne or whatever. It's not as good as Bloodborne, not even remotely close. But it is a decent game. One of the main critiques I would have of the game is I think it's a bit too easy, and I feel like you can kind of use the same strategy for all the bosses pretty much. The way that the blocking mechanic works is pretty strange and kind of trivializes a lot of the fights. The game kind of copies Bloodborne's system where you can get your health back by hitting an enemy. But instead of Bloodborne where you have to hit them like really quick after, there's like a time window of when you can get your health back. With Lies of P, it's different. There is no real time limit for how long you can get your health back. You just can't get hit again. So the strategy really is just to block every hit, and then you just wait for an opening, and then you can get all your health back instantly, do damage to the boss. And I felt like I was beating almost every boss on the first try just by using the blocking system. I don't know. Maybe the combat gets a little more deep later in the game, but I feel like, a lot of it is just very easy. One of the systems that a lot of people have been talking about that's interesting with this game is that you can you have a handle for each weapon and kind of the blade for each weapon, and you can swap them out. So the handle basically determines the move set of the weapon, and the blade on the end determines, the damage and what the weapon scales with, I believe. So if you really like a certain weapon but you want to do a different move set with it, you can kind of swap things around. And I thought it was a pretty cool system, although I will say it definitely incentivized me to just use the same move set throughout the whole playthrough. I was just kind of swapping better blades onto my handle that I liked. So I think it can kind of incentivize players to actually be kind of less creative. A system that kind of seems like it would make players, have to try out a bunch of different weapons. It really just incentivized me to want to do the same move set and just change out the blade. Maybe other players play it differently, but I feel like that's the optimum strategy. If you have a move set you like, it's just to keep going with that one. Whereas in a typical Souls-like game, you would have to learn a different move set if you gain a better weapon. I'm a little bit mixed on that system. Also, the system with the your left hand is like the puppet hand that can have certain different abilities that you attach to it. I feel like you don't really need to use that. I never really felt I had to use that ever. So that's my thoughts right now. Maybe the game gets better as it goes on, but right now it probably wouldn't even be in the top 5. So let's get to the top 5 here. Number 5, we're going with Pikmin 4, the newest Pikmin game in the Pikmin franchise. I've never played Pikmin, so this was my first experience with the series, and I quite enjoyed it. In Pikmin, if you've never played it, it's basically you are this guy and you got a dog, and you collect these various creatures throughout the world called Pikmin that are basically like you slowly accumulate an army of these creatures basically, and you have to send them on different tasks to accomplish different things. And the game is basically a kind of task management game. You have to be paying attention to where all your Pikmin are and being sure that they're safe and that, yeah, that's basically the game. I've always seen gameplay of Pikmin and thought it looked very boring, kind of just sending your squads of guys out. Yeah, I didn't really know how Nintendo was going to make that interesting. But after playing it, I kind of get it. One thing I wasn't expecting was how much I enjoyed the combat encounters of the game. The enemies in the game are all very well designed, such that you have to really learn the enemies' movesets. You have to be able to know when to recall your Pikmin, and when there's an opening for an attack. An enemy might shoot spikes out of its back at a certain point, and then you have to recall your Pikmin, in advance before they do that. There's just a lot of different things like that where you really have to be paying attention. There's also a lot of strategy, not even during the combat encounters, but just in general. You have to understand, which Pikmins can do which task. There's kind of different elements of Pikmin, so some that are fire resistant, some that are electric resistant, some that are water resistant. Some that have different powers, like freezing the water. And you have to be aware of the Pikmin and the paths that they're going through to make sure that there's not any hazards that could damage them. Yeah, it's very kind of a puzzle game almost, but not really. Yeah, and managing all the different Pikmin was fun. It's a great game. Awesome game. My only criticism is it's incredibly short. Very short game. But yeah, that's Pikmin 4 for you. Another problem I have with the game is that the only incentive to really ever kind of play risky in the game, or like send Pikmin on a bunch of different tasks at the same time, the only incentive to do that is just that it's quicker. You're gonna probably finish the game quicker. But really, like, the most optimal strategy would be to do every single task one at a time and watch all your Pikmin to make sure they're safe. That's kind of the most optimal strategy, is to just take an absurd amount of time for each task, which I feel like there should be some kind of punishment for playing that way, to disincentivize players from doing that. But yeah, it's a good game. Check it out if you like Pikmins. Moving on to number 4, we got Blasphemous 2. This is a 2D Metroidvania Souls-like game. I very much enjoyed the first Blasphemous. It's one of my favorites. And yeah, Blasphemous 2 is also very good. Not as good as the first, maybe I would say, but pretty solid title. One of the things that I really like is the multiple different weapons. They give you 3 different weapons this time, whereas in the first one you basically just have the one slash attack. Yeah, I think the weapons added a lot more variety to the combat. I really liked the art in this one. The art in the first one was also very good, the kind of gory pixel art stuff. But this one, they really upped the game, especially in the cutscenes. It's like more kind of not even just pixel art, just straight up regular animation. And yeah, the animation in the cutscenes was really good, and in the whole game, very awesome. I think the bosses this time around were really solid. Yeah, there was a bunch of great kind of boss fights in here. I just really love the Blasphemous world. It takes place in kind of like a very like fucked up kind of Christian apocalypse almost. It's hard to even explain what it is. Almost like a cult has kind of taken over. And there's a lot of like very disturbing kind of Christian imagery in the game. It's very, very cool themes and aesthetics. Things I didn't like about the game, I think it is a bit too similar to the first one for my taste. I found this game way easier than the first one, and I think part of that is to do with the fact that they reuse a lot of the same enemies. Most all of the kind of common enemies that are scattered around are the same as the ones in the first game. So you already know all their movesets, how to beat them. I played the first game, back when it came out a while ago, and I still even remembered the movesets. But yeah, so I think the game is definitely a lot too similar to the first one. to the point where it's kind of a problem. Overall, I think it's pretty solid. There's really good platforming in this one as well. I think better than the first game, because a lot of the different abilities that you gain throughout the game are platforming related upgrades. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the platforming a lot more. And yeah, I think it's a pretty solid Metroidvania game. Extravaganza. Moving on to our number 3 game, we got Armored Core. This was one of my most anticipated games of the year because it is from Software, the developers of Dark Souls, my favorite game developers. And yeah, this was a solid game. Definitely don't go into this expecting it to be anything similar to Dark Souls. It is absolutely not. Really, the only similarities it has to a Souls-like game are just the fact that there's hard bosses with move sets that you have to memorize. But other than that, it's a definitely completely different type of thing. A linear, level-based robot game. You have to design a mech suit that is best equipped to defeat whatever level you are attempting to beat. And the sheer variety in the mech suit upgrades and the various different, you can choose between different legs, different chest, different head, different weapons in each arm. You have shoulder weapons. There's a lot of different shit you can do. You can be a very fast-paced mech. You can be a tank, which is what I opted to do. There's just so many different options of stuff you can do, and the game is pretty forgiving with selling back items. You can sell back items you don't want anymore for new ones from the shop, and they're pretty forgiving. It's not like other games of theirs where you're kind of limited in what stuff you can get. In a lot of other Souls-like games, changing your build can kind of be very annoying, very much a hassle. And yeah, in this game, you are completely incentivized to change up your build every level if you want to. But you don't really have to. A lot of people have been saying that you have to change your mech or else you're not going to be able to finish the game. I had pretty much the same kind of mech for each level with slight variations, and I got through it. So you don't have to create some super creative invention every level, but you can if you want that. But yeah, this game, real fun. Especially the boss fight levels are probably my favorite. Really great designs for a lot of these bosses. The non-boss levels, the levels where you're just kind of going around doing random tasks, some of them can kind of feel like filler. You're just kind of going around killing a few enemies, just going to some waypoint on the map to download some shits to your mech. Yeah, there were a lot of levels where I'm like, that was pretty trash. But I would say a majority of the levels I did have a fun time with. The game can be pretty brutally difficult at some points, especially the final boss, and one of the bosses like 3/4 into the game. Yeah, very difficult. Also, I completely missed how to upgrade your healing flasks, the amount of heals you have. I completely missed that until almost the end of the game, so I completely fucked myself for most of the game. So maybe the game actually is a lot easier if you have the right amount of heals. I don't know, but yeah, it's a good game. Moving on to our number 2 game of the year, we got Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the new Star Wars game. Another Souls-like game. Yeah, that's kind of my favorite genre of games, so maybe I'm a little biased, but this is a sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order from a little bit ago. This game is kind of similar to like Doom Eternal or God of War Ragnarok, where it's very similar to the first game, but just kind of improved in every single way to the point where it is much better. And yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I feel like a lot of people kind of overlooked this game. A lot of the initial coverage of it was very negative because of performance issues. I didn't run into any performance issues when I was playing. I was playing on Xbox and a few weeks after it launched, so maybe they had patched the issues by then, but yeah, I didn't really experience any of that. I thought it was a great experience. The game allows you to have different lightsaber stances, which really change up the way that you play. You can have like the Kylo Ren crossguard saber, and that's kind of the heavy kind of tank class. You can have kind of like Lando Calrissian, where he has the blaster and have a lightsaber as well, and run around blasting people and deflecting bullets with the lightsaber. There's a bunch of different styles you can do that completely change up how the combat feels. You can have the Darth Maul double-ended thing from the first game. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really liked using the Kylo Ren saber and being an absolute tank. I also really enjoyed the exploration as well. I'm not sure how much of the planets are original and not from the first game, but I feel like most of it was stuff I hadn't seen before. I found myself exploring a lot more than I did in the first game. There's lots of different incentives for you to explore. You can get the health upgrades. You can upgrade the BD-1 robot so he can heal you more. You can do challenges to get a lot of XP. Yeah, I really quite enjoyed the exploration. And the platforming as well, I think, is really good in this one. You also already get a lot of the stuff that Cal had in the first game in this one, just straight off the bat. You get the double-bladed lightsaber. So you get kind of into the thick of things pretty quick. The game doesn't kind of go as slowly as the first one. And yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I would say it's even better than the first one. Good story too as well. Yeah, it's just a great, solid game. And our number one game of the year, guys, is of course Legend of Zelda: The Breath of the Wild. No, Legend of Zelda: The Tears of the Kingdom. Absolute masterpiece. This is the follow-up to the last Zelda game, Breath of the Wild, the direct sequel to this one, actually. And yeah, again, it's just one of those where it kind of improves on the first one in every way. The different abilities they give you are very unique and really cool to interact with, especially the Ultra Hand. As probably everyone has talked about, this game has talked about the Ultra Hand, where you can basically just build various different creations, glue different pieces together to make whatever you want. And the system works just really smoothly. I was worried that it might feel kind of annoying to figure out how to build all this stuff. But they make it pretty retard proof. Like when you glue two things together, it'll make it straight for you. Yeah, it's a cool system. Another ability that was really cool, especially for the puzzle stuff, was the recall ability, where you can kind of take an object in reverse time, make it move back to where it was 10 seconds ago. And yeah, there was a lot of puzzles where I was like breaking my brain trying to figure out how to do a lot of this stuff using the recall ability. Yeah, those are kind of the two highlights. The other two abilities, not really as fun to use. The other ability that was a bit of a letdown for me was the fuse ability. I found myself really just only using it to make my items do more damage, just fusing it with like the horns of... You can fuse your weapon with the horn of these certain enemies, like bokoblins, to make it deal more damage. That's really all I ever used the fuse for. I know there's some other creative ways to use it, but I don't know. That's just what I found myself doing. Another thing I liked in this game is the kind of main missions. You know, the equivalent to the Divine Beast from last time. There's 4 main kind of missions you can do. And yeah, it's not really like the Divine Beast this time around. Each one is a very unique task, a very unique kind of mission that you have to go on. Yeah, and they did a pretty good job making them all feel completely different. One thing that was extremely fucking annoying in this game is when the abilities that you get from each of the main missions, you get, again, kind of 4 new abilities. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, when you get the kind of Divine Beast abilities, I'm pretty sure there was like a dedicated button that you could press to activate them. With this game, the ghost of the person will run around with you, and you have to like run up to their ghost to activate the ability. That's the only way you can activate it. And it was just very finicky. A lot of the time I was like really struggling to get the character to like come over to me so I could do it. Yeah, that was just the dumbest decision I've ever seen. I don't know why they decided to do that instead of just having it be like a dedicated button. But yeah, it was really a struggle trying to activate some of these abilities sometimes. Similar to what I said about Blasphemous 2, I think this game is a bit too similar to its predecessor. The map is pretty much entirely reused. I mean, there is some differences because of the different weather events that are going on in the world, so it does feel a bit different, but I mean, for the most part, a lot of it is the same, and they tried to kind of fix this problem by having there be a sky world and a underground world. So the world is 3 times bigger, guys. It doesn't matter that we've reused all these assets. But yeah, the underground world, there's really no incentive for you to ever fucking go there. I found myself never going there ever unless it was required for a story mission. In the above ground areas and the sky world, there's all these shrines scattered around, just like in the last game. They kind of incentivize you to explore because these are your only way of upgrading your health and endurance. So that kind of gives you a natural inclination to want to explore. But when you find the shrines in the underground, it doesn't allow you to upgrade your health or endurance. It just lights up a large area of the underground. So I found myself just completely never going there ever. I just found no reason to go there. I don't even really know why you're supposed to go there. I think maybe there's some materials to upgrade your battery. Another thing I just didn't really engage with at all is upgrading your battery. With this Ultra Hand thing, you can make a lot of vehicles that require a battery. Like you can place a battery that will activate certain wheels that will turn, or you can activate a fan that will help you fly in the sky or something. But yeah, I found myself just being fine with the regular 1 battery. You can upgrade your battery to like a lot more, but I feel like it was kind of unnecessary. A lot of the kind of building stuff is kind of optional. Like you don't really have to get that deep into the building to enjoy the game or to finish the game. But overall, I definitely enjoyed this game. Definitely a must play. Just the various abilities you get alone make it worth buying this game. Just interacting with all the different mechanics. It's pretty crazy, a lot of the stuff they put in here. But anyways, guys, that's my top 5 games. Sorry it took so long. For 2024, I'm going to have 5 games ready in January, I promise. I'm going to get to gaming, so yeah. I'll see you guys in the next one.